Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's web session on Germany's IVD and analytics market, hosted by Germany Trade and Invest. My name is Gregor Kemper, and I'm in charge of biotechnology, biopharmaceuticals, and diagnostics at Germany Trade and Invest's chemicals and healthcare team. About today's topic, first of all, I'm going to share some data on the situation of the German diagnostics market and the German market for analytical, bio, and lab technological products. And after that, Dr. Moritz Beissenhirtz from Thermo Scientific is going to share some insights of his work in industry. I hope everyone joined by now. And in the end, I'm going to tell you a bit about how you can benefit from the German market growth. Well, I'm going to start with diagnostics. Why should you care about the German diagnostics market? Because it's the largest one of Europe. As you can see, market volume in 2019 for in vitro diagnostics alone is over 2.1 billion. And since Europe accounts for about a quarter of the worldwide IVD market, this is of course quite a substantial market, not only on a European, but also on a global scale. No, sorry. In the other way around, the diagnostics industry is also an important industry sector in Germany, employing close to 25,000 people. And this applies only to the core diagnostics companies industry. So if you also include companies that develop and manufacture similar products, but that are not used for clinical applications, but for life science research, you can add about over 15,000 staff more. And if you take both of these sectors together, you have a staggering market size of about 4.5 billion euro. Now, it's generally the case in Germany that the economy, the industry has basically a backbone of small and medium companies. And this is also the case in the case of the diagnostics and life science research industries, where about 90% of companies are SMEs with 500 employees or less. These often small companies tend to be really innovative, and you have a percentage of 13% that's invested of revenue that's invested in research and development. So it's really one of the industries in Germany and elsewhere that has a very high innovativeness. And what's also a nice testimony to the competitiveness and attractiveness of Germany as a location for diagnostics research is the fact that according to a German industry association, 45% of the companies that are active in the diagnostic space in Germany plan to expand their R&D capacities within Germany. How is this market segmented? Well, you can imagine that by far the largest portion of the diagnostics market is made up of reagents, more precisely 85%. The rest is, for example, devices and services. Now, this pie chart shows how the reagent segment is subdivided. The two largest subsegments are clinical chemistry and immunochemistry, which together account for almost 2/3 of the reagent market. You're probably interested in which subfields in particular experience highest growth. And as far as Germany is concerned, the most interesting news, in my opinion, at the moment is the fact that the instrument and consumable, so diagnostic instrument and consumable market segment, after a drought period of 2 years where the market size actually shrank, has experienced a really high growth of 9.3% in 2019. So this is probably the hottest segment of the market right now. Another one that receives momentarily a lot of attention, of course, is infectious immunology for pandemic reasons. This segment has been experiencing growth in 2019, but of course, since this was just the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, you cannot really see the effect. The growth was a bit higher than it was in the previous years, but not exceptional. And I'm really looking forward to see how this is going to develop in 2020. Two other subsegments that experienced moderate but consistent growth over the past years were microbiology reagents and immunochemistry. Now on to the subject of analytics. Here, as far as the general market positioning is concerned, we have a similar situation as the one for diagnostics. So Germany being the largest market in Europe, and Europe accounting for about a quarter of the worldwide market. However, the subdivision of the market is a bit more evenly distributed. You have life science being the largest subsegment, and the segments experiencing the highest growth in recent years were services, Raman spectroscopy, and life sciences. The German industry for analytical bio and lab technology is pretty widespread. You have some higher concentrations in the federal states of Baden-Württemberg, Hesse, and Berlin, but overall you find the 330 companies that develop and manufacture this kind of technology pretty much throughout Germany, and they employ 48,000 employees. The market in the analytical bio and lab technology field has been growing pretty consistently over the past years. Recently, the market growth was especially supported by international sales, which grew at a higher pace, and the overall growth in 2019 was 2.3%. Now, I mentioned the importance of international sales. Who are the most important international trade partners? Here you can see on the left that almost half of German sales of analytical bio and lab technology go to the rest of Europe. The second biggest region trade partner for exports being Asia, accounting for a quarter. And when it comes to imports, these two regions, Europe and Asia, are also the two largest partner regions that import analytical bio and lab technology to Germany. So, of course, many people wonder what has been the impact of the pandemic on the operation of German medical analytics and diagnostics labs. And according to a survey, about 2/3 of medical analytics laboratories have reported that they have business as usual. So basically they're as close to capacity as they were before the pandemic. 13 of them said that they have even more to do than they had before COVID-19 started, which I suppose are the laboratories that are actually involved in analytics related somehow to infectious diseases. And while so far in 2020, there has been a decrease in revenue of these laboratories, the decrease has been less severe than people would have expected earlier this year in summer. So overall, the outlook for German laboratories and for the German analytics and lab sector is cautiously positive. And now I'm happy to hand the mic to Dr. Moritz Beissenhirtz, our speaker, who is a business development manager at Thermo Fisher Scientific and is now going to share some views on the development of diagnostics in times of COVID.
Thank you very much, Gregor. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here and have the opportunity to give you a little bit of insight into what the year 2020 has been like for us. It's certainly been a very special and unusual year for everybody, and I think our industry really has been at the forefront of developments here. So my name is Moritz Beissenhirtz. I work for Thermo Fisher Scientific. We see ourselves and we aim to be the world leaders in serving science. Huge company with more than 75,000 employees. We invest more than $1 billion per year in R&D. Our product offerings are really all about life sciences, analytics, and the labs. We have a lot of product portfolio around lab equipment, analytical instruments for the different industries, both for academia as well as for the industries. We have a strongly growing pharma services section where we support the pharma industry in the development. Sorry, I just heard we don't see my presentation. So let me try again. I think this is better. Thank you, Gregor. So here's again our product portfolio. I had briefly mentioned that we are strongly growing in the area of pharma services, where we really support the pharmaceutical industry in the development and the research, but also in the manufacturing and the logistics of drug development. One focus point of our company is diagnostics. If you look at the right-hand side of your screen, the one in the red box, this is our business unit. We are located in Hennigsdorf on the outskirts of Berlin. Our focus is biomarkers, so and basically products around the diagnostics industries on the detection of biomarkers to help diagnose patients. So this year has really been very different from anything we had experienced so far. As a company, almost all of our areas of product portfolio are involved in the fight against COVID. We have obviously spent a lot of effort in developing testing and diagnosing COVID options. We have more than, I think by now it's more than 20 million tests that we produce weekly for the PCR-based systems to diagnose COVID infections. But we also have or are involved in more than 250 drug development processes in the industry, where we support the pharmaceutical industry either in the research around COVID drug development or in the production and the logistics. So somehow Thermo Fisher is involved in almost all of the ongoing vaccine and therapy development projects. This is very briefly a summary of our PCR technology. Obviously, we have a PCR kit to diagnose corona. What I think is interesting and something that really popped up early in the pandemic times for us is that it's not just all about developing the tests, but it's also very important to make sure that you have the products around the testing, such as the mouth swabs to take the samples, transport media to somehow get the samples transported from the patient to the laboratories. And as you obviously know, the number of testing has really grown exponentially over a very short period of time. So it's really been a challenge to make sure that not just the tests are available, but also that all the other additional products surrounding this are available in the quality and the quantity that are actually needed. This down here is a photo from our Lenexa facility. This is a factory that we just built from scratch within a few months to make sure that we have sufficient viral transport media available globally. What's really fascinating, and I think what is unprecedented in our industry, is the speed in which the diagnosis and the establishment of the laboratory testing has taken place over the last months. If you remember, looking back in January, basically, there were the first reports about a SARS-like virus coming out of China. In March, we had our first corona test on the market with EUA granted from the FDA, and a week later CE marking from Europe. We started with 5 million tests per week in April here, and then doubled the capacity to 10 million in May, and then this fall we are moving to 20 million tests per week. And just to be clear, these are obviously our numbers and our efforts, but this is really something that we have seen across the industry, where all relevant players really did whatever they could to make sure that testing solutions are available for the patients. This is a summary of all the things that we have been involved in fighting the pandemic. Really, what I wanted to point out again is that in January we had first reports of a SARS-like virus Then we received the sequence of the virus, and in March there were authorized tests already available. And this obviously took place while at the same time clearly lockdowns were going on all across the world, including, of course, also in our facilities. So our teams really had to make sure that they stuck with all the hygiene protocols and minimize the danger to themselves and to the colleagues, while at the same time really producing a completely new test from scratch. And this is so one thing that I find really interesting, and you can find this on a website. This is a blog that we have, where basically one of the project leaders from the development of these tests answers some questions about what this was like. So basically, what happened is that in January they received notice that that there was a virus coming, and the clear question was, can we somehow develop a test for that? And of course they did. They really worked around the clock, as I am sure many colleagues across our industry have done. And another really important aspect, and something that really should be stressed in this discussion, is also that the interactions with regulatory bodies have really been as swifter than ever seen before, really. I mean, the comparison that our team here is making is they had been involved in the development of an assay for the Zika virus as that was coming on, particularly from South America a few years ago. And they went essentially through the same pathways to gain regulatory approval in the United States. And their experience is that this will take several months. In this case, it's actually nine months, and it was clear that this was not acceptable in the current certain conditions. If you think about it, this would mean that if they started in January, February, it would mean that the first test would be coming out right now, which clearly is not acceptable. And what they really did is they interfaced strongly and nearly daily with the regulatory bodies, and constantly made sure to understand what the regulatory bodies were looking for and how to speed things up. And what really happened actually is that within 24 hours after submission of the documents to the FDA, they received this EUA. There's this emergency use approval for the assay, and the same thing was pretty much took place in Europe, where I think it took about a week to get the CE marking for these products. So I think this is really amazing. Particularly if you remember back to the days when HIV was coming out and was slowly starting to be understood. You know how long it took to first of all understand what kind of virus this is. It is to get the sequence, to get reliable testing that took years and years. And in this case, actually, we learned about the virus. We had the sequence in January, and then in March, we again, along with the other companies in the marketplace, had such a test available, which is now in routine use. And we have seen that the PCR tests, which are really one of the key aspects of fighting the pandemic, and now we are seeing or beginning to see that these antigen-based rapid tests are entering the marketplace, and with the hope of a vaccine coming within the next few months, there will be another shift probably in the way that COVID-19 detection takes place routinely in the labs. So I think this is a very interesting and exciting time to work in the industry. What we have certainly seen is that all across society, obviously a lot of medical interventions in the hospitals have been postponed. People are going to the doctor much less, and obviously you can you can understand that this has an effect on the diagnostic industry as well. So there are the things that are not taking place right now. On the other hand, we really have our hands full working on the different aspects of corona diagnosis. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. We have the Q&A box open, I think. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. I will hand back to Gregor.
Yes, thanks a lot, Moritz.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Moritz. That was really interesting indeed. Before answering questions, I'm just going to mention one more thing. Just a second. Because if now, after we've told a few things about diagnostics and especially the German diagnostics and laboratory market, if any of the viewers are now interested in the German market and how to access it, they should get in contact with Germany Trade and Invest. Just a second. Okay, we offer a variety of services for companies that are interested in expanding to Germany, both industry-specific information from our dedicated industry teams, and also cross-sectional information about tax and legal issues, incentives, etc. We can help with the location identification and provide quite a bunch of other support to make the path to Germany and the access to the German market as easy as possible. So, as I said, my name is Gregor Kemper. I'm in charge of biotechnology and diagnostics, and I'd be happy to answer your questions about Germany. So, as Dr. Beissenhirtz said, now we would be happy to answer any questions. Just seeing if there are any. Sorry, Moritz, can you see the window with the questions? Because right now I can't.
Yeah, I don't think there are any questions.
Okay. In this case,
yeah.
Okay. So I thought I just didn't see them. In this case, I have a question for you, Moritz. So of course, Thermo Fisher Scientific has a pretty broad product portfolio, and you work at the Henningsdorf site near Berlin. Could you tell me a bit about like what the role of this site is within the context of the larger company? Like which parts of the product portfolio you cover?
Yes, very, very happy to. We have our own line of diagnostic instruments for mainly larger hospital labs. We offer a large range of clinically relevant biomarker tests for the hospitals and for the laboratories. And one of our key products in this pandemic is actually a test for a molecule called procalcitonin, or short PCT. This is a test that allows the doctor to discriminate if an infection in a critically or severely ill patient, if this is actually due to a bacterial infection or a viral infection. And this is really, I think, from what we've seen, very, very important these days, because if you do a corona test, the rate of the positive tests is somewhere between 5 to 10%. Meaning that if you look at the significance of severely ill patients, about 90% of them actually have a different kind of infection. And so we really have seen a lot of interest in that to follow up. Either is it a bacterial infection instead of corona, or secondly, if a corona positive patient also has a secondary infection by bacteria, for example. And this again allows the doctors to very early begin a suitable antibiotic therapy.
I see. That is probably a relevant thing, especially now that it gets colder and all kinds of infections become more commonplace, and it becomes more important to distinguish them from corona or.
This is definitely definitely incredibly important in this. And we have another range of biomarkers which can also help the doctors to try and make a prognosis about the course of the infection and the severity. of the infection in patients, which would then, of course, allow them to streamline treatment, basically trying to understand which patients need to go to the ICU immediately, which patients, you know, where you could follow something more of a wait-and-see approach or standardized treatment. So I think anything around that is currently very, very relevant. And we have quite a lot to offer there.
Well, thank you. Now I found the window with the questions and answers again, but I didn't see any. So, dear participants, if anyone has any remaining questions, now's the opportunity to ask them. If that is not the case, I suppose that I'd like to say thank you for attending. And as I said, if you can think of any questions you have after the webinar session, we'd be happy to answer them. Here's my email address. Please contact me. Thank you very much and goodbye.